In this video, I want to talk about fishing a shaky head. A shaky head is truly one of the best lures that we have as anglers to just get some bites. It will absolutely catch some big fish, but the thing that I love about a shaky head is when I am struggling, I know it is a technique that I can pick up and simply get some bites. Now, with that being said, there are three main things that I really want to talk about when it comes to shaky head fishing, things that I think will help you become a better shaky head fisherman. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finn Fishing. As a lot of you guys know, Black Friday sales are live right now over at Finn Fishing. So everything is 20% off. I mean, hats, shirts, sun gloves, the brand new duck shorts, everything. Also, I just got a ton of rod gloves back in stock. This is something that a lot of you guys have been asking for. I have them for casting gear, for spinning gear, for extra long casting gear, a number of different colors. So anyways, I'm gonna leave everything linked down below. Like I said, everything is on sale actually except for the rod gloves themselves. And also just got in a new foamy trucker hat. So a lot of different things down there at Finn. I'm really excited to be expanding the line a little bit. Anyways, I'll leave some links down below. Thank you to all of you who shopped at Finn Fishing. I hope that you know how grateful I am to you. All right, let's talk about shaky head fishing. And I was actually just looking at not only this YouTube channel, but over at BassFishingHQ, and I have actually done very little content on a shaky head over the last 3 years, which surprised me, but also didn't because this isn't a bait that I always have rigged up. As far as finesse fishing goes, which fishing a shaky head is definitely more finesse oriented, it's probably one of the baits that I pick up like a little bit later. Like I tend to throw a drop shot a lot more. I tend to throw a Nico rig a lot more, but there is definitely a time and a place where a shaky head absolutely shines. Of all the kind of finesse techniques that are bottom bouncing, it's definitely one that is very weedless as well, which is great when you're fishing it around cover. Now, there are three main things that I want to talk about when it comes to a shaky head that, again, I think will lead to a lot less frustrating fishing and also help you to catch more fish. Now, the first thing is always fish the lightest shaky head weight that you can find. I remember when I first got into fishing a shaky head, I read an article about a guy who was fishing a shaky head, and he was fishing a 1/4 ounce shaky head. And what I kind of passed up at the time was that he was fishing it in 20 to 30 foot of water, so a little bit deeper water. And when I got to the body of water that I was fishing, I was kind of fishing the bank where it was more slopes. I was using that 1/4 ounce shaky head, and I would catch some fish on it, but man, I lost a ton of shaky heads. Like I lost a ton of them, but it wasn't because of anything to do really with the design of the bait. It's just because I was using too heavy of a shaky head for the situation that I was fishing. And this applies to more than just shaky head fishing. It pretty much goes for any type of bottom bouncing bait. And this is that the lightest weight that you can get away with, typically the better it's gonna be. The more bites you're gonna get, the less you're going to get hung. It's typically a better situation, and it is definitely true with the shaky head. I remember fishing this exact same bank years later, but fishing an 1/8 ounce shaky head. And the difference in the number of times I got snagged on kind of this rocky bottom was substantial. And I could usually almost pop it free, where a lot of times those 1/4 ounce weights, I would get hung up. Now, can you fish a 1/4 ounce weight shaky head in shallow water? Absolutely. But again, the lightest weight that you can get away with, I think you will get a lot more bites. And so it's just something that I do. I typically, those are kind of the main baits that I use a lot. Like I use an 1/8 ounce and I use a 3/16 ounce a lot. I'll use a 1/4 ounce when I'm fishing a little bit deeper. I've even gone less than an 1/8 of ounce before and gone with like really small jig heads. But that 1/8 ounce and 3/16 are probably my two go-tos when it comes to the shaky head. All right, let's talk secondly about the plastic bait that you put on a shaky head. The plastic bait that you put on the back of that bait does matter. And something that I have grown fond of over the years is using some sort of high highly buoyant bait. Or, you know, for example, like ELASTEC type baits are, you know, they float, they're very buoyant. Also, X Zone has a line of baits that I really like. They all float, and I really like those baits on my shaky head. I think that one, it helps you to actually stay hung up even a little bit less because of the buoyancy of that bait. And two, I think it just looks a lot better down there. You know, I remember actually using some shaky heads in the past where that if you looked at the bait in the water, you'd cast it down there and the bait would literally just fall over on its side. And so really these days, I always try to use some sort of buoyant plastic bait of some sort. And so that's very, very important. The other thing is that I always consider is the thickness of the plastic bait that you're using. Now, most of the time when I'm fishing a shaky head, actually about 90%, probably 99% of the time I fish a shaky head, I'm fishing some sort of straight tail worm. But the thickness of that worm really matters, because if I am, one thing that I've done a lot of in the past is skipped a shaky head up underneath docks. In that situation, I actually like to use a little bit thicker worm. A little bit thicker worm, you would be shocked at just how much better that bait will cast, will skip, excuse me, up under a dock. And it really comes down to surface area of the bait. But you might have an 1/8 ounce shaky head with like a really skinny worm on it, and an 1/8 ounce shaky head with just a little bit thicker plastic on it, and you would be so shocked at how much better that thicker plastic will skip under a dock. Now, with that being said, when I fish a shaky head in really deep water, I actually like a little bit skinnier bait. And the biggest reason is that that skinnier bait, that thinner bait really doesn't catch as much water. So it really just allows me to get a better feel of what my bait is doing down there on the bottom. I can really feel the bottom well because that bait isn't catching as much water, causing it to lift up. So I really like a little bit skinnier bait as well in deeper water. But it's kind of all over the place. There's a number of different plastics that you can put on a shaky head. There's just, when you're out there, just think about what is going to help you to be a little bit more efficient with your time fishing the shaky head itself. All right, the last thing, the third thing, I said, I put a little bit a note here, and I said, do not forget about Magnum shaky heads. And this has been a deal for a little while now. I think that the first pro angler that I really saw utilize this in a tournament where I'm like, I haven't seen that before, I think was Edwin Evers. And it was a number of years ago. He was fishing a Magnum shaky head offshore and catching giants on it. And so a Magnum shaky head basically is just like, it's kind of like the power shot is to a drop shot. It's a heavier version where you use heavier line for the same style technique. And it's the exact same thing with a Magnum shaky head, using a bigger worm, using a little bit heavier weight, but using bait cast equipment. This is a phenomenal technique when it comes to fishing offshore structure. When you're fishing offshore rock piles, brush piles, that Magnum shaky head is just a really good bait. Now, I often will fish just a big old Texas rig worm in some of the same places, but if I am fishing around like purely just rock or shell bottoms, that Magnum shaky head I really, really like in those situations. So just don't forget about it. It's a great technique. It's a great technique to follow up, say, baits like a deep diving crankbait or a big flutter spoon or a big swim bait that you might be fishing offshore. Follow those up with that Magnum shaky head, get a couple extra bites out of a school, and just keep on keeping on. All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video all about shaky head fishing, and don't forget to check out that fin gear, and I will see you guys tomorrow.